Welcome back. You've got Chantal and Jenny here, two newbies exploring A Course in Miracles. How's it going, Chantal?
Yeah, it's been going good. It's been a little while. Um, I went on a little bit of a family holiday, visited a friend for a wedding, so that was nice. And um, I was a bit nervous about seeing my friend's family. I haven't seen them since I was like really, really little. And so when I was on the ferry towards the island that we were going for the wedding, um, I just got the desire to kind of like flip through some of the older lessons, and I just kind of I had A Course in Miracles on my phone, so I randomly scrolled and just stopped, and I it brought me to like the lessons that are kind of lesson like 30 to 40 in that range, and all of those lessons were super super helpful. So it was kind of nice to have that uh to like trust that feeling of that to
Yeah.
go back and not necessarily like feel like, oh, I have to do this in perfect order and not go back or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
like feel called to go back and just kind of do it and spend some time revisiting those really early lessons. So yeah.
How awesome that in the midst of going into a real life experience, right? You just went back to that support of A Course in Miracles. And I love that you went, do you know what? I'm going to just scroll and see where I land. And I know I'm going to get something there that's going to be helpful.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it was perfect. And like while I was on the train while I was on the ferry, I probably read about like six of the lessons, and all of them were very closely related and built on each other. And because I've already did them, I kind of a lot of them were say this thing out loud or in your head, close your eyes, see what comes up, and then or like slowly gaze and look around you. And so I kind of just did exercise after exercise. Of course, the exercise suggests to repeat them like 5 times a day or whatever, right? But I just kind of did them back to back. And then I finally landed on the lesson where I was like, oh, okay, this one I actually need to repeat today. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah. And like all of it was perfect because I feel like I kind of needed to do those mini refreshers of just doing those previous exercises just once to get me in the mindset that I was ready for like, okay, this is the lesson you need, but we just need to prepare you for it just a wee bit.
Yeah,
Um,
I love
so
that.
yeah.
Do you know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of Abraham Hicks and how Abraham shares and Esther shares about the vortex,
Mhm.
and we pop out of the vortex. And so it makes me think that you felt yourself pop out of the vortex and figured out what to do to get back in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And I
And knowing
find
that that
that
was your responsibility, not anybody else's.
100%.
Right?
And
Yep.
this like I was nervous about there's been a couple moments in my life lately where I've been a bit nervous about people who were like authority figures in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that I find kind of pulls me out a little bit. And yeah, this just pulled me back in perfectly. Another one was I had a really beautiful experience yesterday where I got to do a reading on one of my teachers. So they hired me to do just one intuitive coaching session with them, and I was so nervous for it because you're going from like
Sure.
this person's student to all of a sudden like their peer slash coach slash whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so just the relationship switches a bit. And this person's the least judgmental person I have ever met. However, I was like, I feel like I'm going to be graded on this.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the feeling for like the weeks leading up to it. And we booked it right before I went on holiday. And so it just kind of on a holiday every once in a while that would kind of come up and be like, and again, yeah, like the earlier lessons helped me with that as well, where it stopped me from um seeing each other as like like it allowed me to like not put this teacher on a pedestal, essentially, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Which is what we talked about is in previous episodes, where when people put your teacher, your coach, or whatever on a pedestal, it's kind of asking for them to get knocked off, or it kind of creates these weird things. And I realized that by being nervous, I was putting her on a pedestal. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What a great opportunity to, like, not role reversal, but just to sort of shed the roles, really,
Yeah.
right? To shed the roles and then just come together as two beings, that oneness piece again.
Yeah.
Yeah. What an awesome opportunity. I'm so glad you said yes to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it was great. And like I got a message from her today being like, thank you so much for yesterday. It was super powerful. And I was like, oh, that like that feels so good. I felt very confident afterwards. And even like even before, I just like on my way there, the confidence just kept on growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, and then I was just like even before, like, why was I so nervous about this? Like, this is gonna be great.
Yeah.
And it was.
And another example of feeling yourself sort of getting out of the vortex and figuring out how to get yourself back in or into the flow, if you like flow instead of vortex or whatever it is, back into your body, being connected, all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And we have these tools, right? We all have them and we all do them in different ways. And what's great is when you can just keep adding to the toolbox and adding to the toolbox so that when something new comes up, you can blindly like flail around and grab one and just use it because you've got so many options.
Absolutely. Yes. And
Yeah.
this is also like I with that toolbox, I realized that I mean, I have the book right here. So Divya and Lynette are two teachers for our intuition coaching. They wrote this book, You Don't Look Psychic. And I realized I haven't really done the exercises out of this book in a long time.
Mm,
Because a part of it is because I've been working on A Course in Miracles. I've been reading other books and doing exercises in there. But it was just kind of a nice through working on my on one of my teachers yesterday. It kind of was a reminder of, oh, it's time to kind of revisit some of these exercises again and re-solidify those tools for myself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's that common theme of you just going back to stuff that you've used previously and have explored previously and just bringing it up again, right?
Well, and to look at it from like this brand new perspective, because
Yeah.
you and I keep on studying, right? And so, when I first read this, I knew nothing about any of this,
Yeah.
right? Like, I
Yeah.
really was like a blank canvas,
Yeah.
um, which is great. But now I feel like I can reread this, revisit it, and um, I can visit it from and like I know I'm going to get different things from this book than
Yeah.
I originally got because there's a little bit more understanding. It's not just everything's brand new.
Yeah. And our perspective, like we're a different person every day, every hour, every week, every month, every year. Like we're a different person. That's part of the goal. Wouldn't it be horrible if we were all the exact same?
Oh my gosh,
And
totally.
isn't it interesting how, when we haven't seen somebody for a long time, we actually think they are going to be the exact same? And then we see them interact with them or just, watch them interact and be like, oh, and sure, they might have, some things, some, characteristics that they still have brought forward, but they're not going to be the exact same person at all.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and okay, so this is something that I noticed at the wedding as well.
Yeah.
Is there's a few people that I haven't seen in forever.
Yeah.
And the people who have been really working on themselves and doing a lot of inner work and stuff like that, I can see huge changes in them.
Yeah.
There are a few people though where they really haven't done anything where I'm like, oh, it's really surprising how little people change sometimes. So it was like I got to see this like two extremes of like huge change in people versus like, okay, like they're still how I remember them and whatever. And like You know, there has been changes. It's not like they're the exact same person,
Yeah.
but it's definitely less change versus the person who's done a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's so interesting. And then to step back and to not, for us to not be judgmental about that, because everybody's journey is their own and their lessons are their lessons and all those sorts of things, right? It's,
Oh, totally. Like my friend's mother, she uh like she's the same age as my mother, right? Like um I don't expect, like, versus someone who's like who I met when they were 16 years old, right?
yeah,
I'm going to expect a ton of change within 15 years versus someone who I met, let's say, when they were like 50, they were 55, let's say like 10 years ago, or I was sorry, 15 years ago, right? Like I think there are different stages in our life where there's a lot more learning
sure.
versus
Yeah.
like I feel like between like okay, I this is gonna sound weird, but like birth to like maybe 40, I feel like that there's like a lot of learning
Yeah.
versus like I feel like 55 plus, it's a lot of like wisdoming.
Yeah. Right.
Does that make
I didn't use that word. I heard that term a couple of weeks ago somewhere, somehow.
wisdoming?
Yeah. And that's what yeah. And it was just, and I think they were like, they were changing the word knowledge to wisdom, I think.
Okay.
And I think that, and they were chatting generally about ages as well, and just saying at a certain age, it's about wisdom and less about knowledge. And I think that they were sort of comparing how that's imparted to others.
Mm,
Yeah. That it's done from a more wisdom lens than I know this stuff, so just listen to me because I know better than you do.
yeah.
That the approach is just different.
Well, and I think as well, like there's like I think again, like the younger years, it's more about acquiring information and
Yeah.
acquiring knowledge versus I think that there gets an age where it's more about like refining it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that there's like less worry attached to what you know and what you don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there is a confidence in it.
Yeah. There's a dropping off of the ego a little bit, right?
Yes.
Or a lot of it, whatever. Everybody's level would be different, but just letting the ego just slide away.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting getting to go to a wedding or like a family reunion or a high school reunion or a college reunion or any of those things where you haven't seen some of those people for a really long time. But when you did used to see them a lot, that they were a real integral part of your life.
Yeah.
It's just because you knew them so well and all of these sorts of things. And now you don't. And so you're getting to know them again, but you're also reminiscing. And it's just, or, I've had people say to me and they haven't seen me like 10 years or 15 years, like, what's new? And I've started saying a lot, like, because, people are like, oh, not much. Well, darn well that in 10 or 15 years, somebody's experienced all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'll say a million things or a ton of things, tons of things. How about you?
That's a really beautiful way to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so, anyways.
So, what about you? What's been going on? How has your journey with A Course in Miracles been going?
So we're in the midst of, so our last meetup that we had, we were on lesson 190 and today we're on lesson 212. I think I've got those numbers right.
Yes.
And in the midst of that, we started another review. We have talked very openly about reviews and how we feel about reviews. And we are in the midst still of this review, and it's very, very long. And it feels like a luscious piece of fruit to me. There
Ooh.
is just so much there. Like every morning, I'm like, what is it going to be today? Like, I'm just so excited for it because of the lens and the perspective that's being taken and the lens and perspective that I'm allowing myself to have in it. And so the lessons start out the same during this review. They are the same every day, and then just a little one liner. So it is, I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. And then the little one line lesson for the day. And I don't know, there's just something about it that I am really loving a lot. Part of it is because I am working on letting go of being so attached to the physical body and what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it just feels really good. And the lessons just, I don't know, it feels like they're really building momentum. Maybe that's what it is, that there's just this really beautiful momentum in this review. Instead of feeling like we're getting pulled back and like forced to redo something because we maybe didn't get it right the first time or something, this just feels completely different. And I definitely had some favorites. And one of them was lesson 190, which is the one that we had landed on last time, right?
Yeah.
And it was, who am I not forgiving? And so I had done an inventory, and then I brought that inventory to my coach. And between her and I, like, I've been working on it and she's helping me along with it. And it's feeling really good. And it's also showing me how far I've come in forgiveness because I've worked down my inventory,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
yay. It just feels like, yeah, like I'm digging into stuff I haven't dug into yet. Instead of like, I still need to work on this because it's still the one that's, really stuck or something. And so to do that too, I started doing a radical forgiveness worksheet.
Yeah.
And holy, it just really helped to unearth more. And I have my session with my coach this afternoon. And so I'm really looking forward to it, even though I know it's going to be really hard and emotional and those things. I know that's going to be good and juicy. So I really liked that. And then lesson 206, again, it starts off with the I am not a body, I am free, right? And then it goes into I bless the world because I bless myself. And so during the meditation that morning, what I did was I just let myself think of all the ways that I bless myself. And I came up with things through the whole 15-minute meditation. Like I just kept letting them come and letting them come and letting them come. So then I was curious, how do you bless yourself?
Me, like you're asking me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
How do you bless yourself?
I okay, wanna know what? This is where I really struggled with that lesson. So
Hey.
when it came to um the first one you talked about was 190. It was the letting go of like the body image, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that one, I okay. So a lot of like my body issues are very attached to my mother. And when she came to visit me, so she was here for like quite a long time, I think like 2.5 weeks or something like that. And like first day, like first couple seconds of her arriving at my flat, she was in my kitchen to get a glass of water and like already judged something that she saw on the counter. And it's just like, is this really how we're starting this visit?
Right.
And anyways, it was fine. Like we worked through things, but it did put me back in a weird mindset. And um I realized that like when me and her visit with each other, old neural pathways that I work
Yep.
really, really hard to change
Yeah.
somehow get reignited. And it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, like let's work on this again. And so literally the afternoon of her leaving, I did like a release of some of that stuff. I was reading and interesting enough, it wasn't me reading A Course in Miracles that caused that release. It was um oh, I forget the title of the book. It's an Esther and Jerry Hicks book. It's the second book to Ask and It's Given. It's called like I want to say like deliberate intention or like living with intent or something along
Oh
the
yeah, I
lines.
don't know, but one of their, yeah.
Yeah. And they were talking about how like when you have goals or like when you're focusing on something or sorry, your desires, how it's a bit like GPS. And when you're focusing on the negative aspects of it,
Mhm.
or the hurt or the wrong that people have done you, you're kind of putting energy in that direction. Even
Yeah.
though the universe knows your desires over here, you're also communicating that you're holding on to this area, like
And that's when we're
basically
popping ourselves out of the vortex again, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of like decided like, okay, I'm just gonna like, and so literally like after reading that, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm holding on to like this anger with my mom a little bit. Like, let's release it. And so when in A Course in Miracles, when it was saying like the list of people that you have forgiven, again, while my mom was here, it was very insightful. A lot of contrast versus clarity. But so I always had quite a lot of anger towards my sister, a huge amount that I thought I released and I thought that I worked on quite a bit and I thought I forgave her for a lot of stuff. But when my mom was here, she kind of asked some very personal questions and it kind of reignited some of like the hurt and some of the memories. And she's like, "Oh, I never knew such and such." And I was like, yeah, like that was a really painful and hard time. And then through the communication with my mom, because and I've talked about this on the podcast a little bit about how uh, I really struggle with anger, and I get really like I kind of feel like I get really angry, but I never feel like I fully experience anger, or I don't experience enough of it, or like I kind of bypass it. It always feels like I'm skipping it somehow. And and so my mom brought up all this painful stuff, and then I realized that like my anger towards my sister started to come up again. And so whenever my sister would kind of get brought up, anger would spill out. And I was like, even in my head, I was like, I am getting so angry about this still. Like, why haven't I let this go yet? Like, I thought I let it go. Like, am I really gonna have to do more work on this? Clearly I do. But through it, I realized every time when my anger would come up, my mom would be like, Chantal, you're really just gonna have to let it go and like find a way to like, just like let it go. But her always the minute and I realized that the reason why I don't feel like I'm allowed to experience anger is that was always my mom. She always, the minute I would ever feel angry towards my sister or anyone, it would always be like, it's not good for you to be angry. Like, just let it go. And I would like, so it would be like, the anger would come out. And just as it was about to get released, it would be like, oh, you just need to let it go. So you're not actually allowed to release it. You just
Yeah.
have to like kind of dampen it. And like, and so I realized, okay, like in order to heal this, like I need to get properly angry and fully express the breath of it. And then maybe I can heal from it a little bit. So a lot of like it's very interesting because like all of the exercises you talked about kept on that sort of it. My mom was very much bringing in the crunchiness to go
Yeah.
with, and but it there was something about and like I'm embarrassed to say this, but like I feel disappointed in myself. There's something about the fact that I was with my mother nonstop. We had to keep on like even like sharing beds and stuff like that or whatever, and like sharing hotel rooms. I never really felt like I had space from her the whole time she was here. And so even when I was sitting there doing Course in Miracles or whatever, I never could get really out of her energy. And
Yeah.
so in a weird way, I felt like I was never fully practicing the exercises.
Oh yeah. I can. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like I do feel like for all of the exercises for like the last 2 weeks, especially like the 190 ones, like that whole area there,
Yeah.
I do feel like with those ones, I will have to like it's kind of like when I was doing them, it highlighted things so much, but I never got to fully do them. So it's like it's highlighted the importance of you're gonna have to go back and do these.
Right.
And it's not from like the good student perspective. It's like
Yep.
my body's telling me I need to go back
Is
and redo
telling
those.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point. And it reminded me, I was going to bring this up when you were talking about the wedding, how when we spend time with our families or whoever, how we can so easily revert back to this person that we were during that time as well. I know somebody shared with me once that she could tell how much work she had done on herself by how many days she could stay at her mom and dad's house. And she said before her mom passed, she said, I was at however many days, she said. And she was so proud of herself that she was at that many days before she got so triggered that she needed to leave.
Yeah.
I thought, what a great way measure it, to measure that. Because if you're not with them, all the time, when you do spend time with them and you revert back to being 16 years old, being 5 years old, being whatever age,
Yeah.
and we're triggered in that way, and that's how we show up, and then they show up in the way that they were at that time too. And it's interesting how we all show up or don't show up, or
Well, and
whatever.
what I found really fascinating as well was, and I even said this to my mom, but like without, I mean, she probably knew exactly what I was talking about, but I just didn't want to like address the issue completely. But I said to her, I was like, I feel like because with preparing for the disability expo with my other business and stuff,
Yeah.
um there was a period there where it was just go go go, where I didn't really have time to meditate as much as I would like,
Yeah.
and my practice was kind of like all over the place. And I was saying to my mom, I was like, I need to get back into having a very, very dedicated practice. Um, with the move and stuff, like everything's just kind of been new
Yeah.
and all over the place. And I was like, I really need it because I feel myself getting frustrated and angry, and um I'm behaving and feel, and like the feelings that are coming up are things that like it's how I was a few years ago. This isn't me now. Um and and she's like, well, yeah, like even even while I'm here, just do it. And yeah, I could have asked her to leave the room for a bit or whatever, but I still felt like I couldn't just do it.
Yeah.
I just always felt like, in a weird way, like if I asked her, oh, like, can you come back in 20 minutes or whatever, she would do it. But I feel like my mentalness would be, or like my mindset would be, okay, I gotta meditate really, really quick because otherwise
Yeah.
she's like gonna walk in and
Yeah.
like, and it's just
Yeah.
like I can't just fully relax into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that, isn't there beauty in one, recognizing that, actually feeling that,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same with you feeling like that you reverted back a little bit to some old ways of doing things, but you noticed it,
Yeah. And I know
right?
what the solution is for me, or like
And you know what the
what my self-care
solution
tools
is.
are.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that it having done that is a version of a layer showing up for you to work through.
Oh my, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm making this episode all about me.
No, it's good.
uh through this as well. So with the intuition course that Jenny and I took, they did recordings of each week for us to so that we
Right.
could redo the lessons. And very much like I'm like, okay, it's time to revisit those lessons as well. Um,
Mm,
especially the like because the first 6 months was very intensive inner work, and a lot of the things with my sister, whatever, like I let go so much when it came to my sister. She got pregnant very early into us doing theirs. Um and yeah, and so I did a lot of work in that time. And it's a weird way, like in a weird way, her pregnancy almost like allowed me to like release a lot of the stuff,
mm.
and not really see me as being responsible for her anymore. And then now it's like it's time to do that really deep work because there's a lot of stuff coming up with my sister and my mom again, and like ancestral stuff. And yeah, I need to go back and do what
And it's
works.
not a right. And it's not a sign that you did anything wrong or that you missed anything. It's just a layer.
Yeah, I'm ready for the next onion skin.
Just a layer. And when a new layer comes up, it means we've done work and get to move on. So
Totally.
anybody out there who's like, why am I still having this conversation about my dad when I was 7? It's layers. It's
Yeah.
going to come up in layers and layers and layers.
Yeah.
It's a cyclical experience. It's not linear at all. Right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's a beautiful spiral.
Yeah. Well, and like the funny thing is too, is with the course with Divi, I did like energy. So she had two courses you could take, or like two different kinds of classes you could take before you took the year-long training.
Yep.
And it was energy 101 and I think shadow 101 or whatever. And I think that started like September. So it's kind of around the same time of year, if I so remember, or maybe
Ah,
I called her in September and that's when I signed up. I can't remember. I feel like it's like getting close to that time of the year.
yeah. There you go, right? If there's something seasonally that sort of helps to bring it along.
Yeah, maybe I have a
Uh,
2 year cycle that.
Maybe, right? Yeah. Yeah. I also loved lesson 202, and it was be still a moment and go home. And it made me think of, what does home feel like to me? Like home inside of me. And is that reflected like in my physical home? And so
Ooh,
I had some fun play with that. Just that my home is quite quiet and it's comfortable. It is not ready for anybody to come in and take pictures with for magazines. I've been in those homes and I always leave a little jelly and then I usually shake it off because I'm like, that's just not who I am. I couldn't maintain it. I'd be anxious, all of these sorts of things, right? And just like, yeah, it was just interesting to just play with that a little bit. Um, okay, and today's lesson, I love today's lesson. So it's 212, and it's still in the I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. I have a function God would have me fill. And so then listening to Marianne Williamson she goes on to talk about our function, all of our functions, right? Not a surprise, to connect. This is how I, word it, to connect, to shine my light, and to forgive.
yeah.
And I just think we can use that word function to really come up with what's my purpose and what's my service, right? Because so when I first think of function, I think of what it is that I am doing,
Yeah.
right? Like my work that I do. I'm like, no, but that's service. So I had this great little conversation with myself in the whole realm of, when I fulfill my function to connect, to shine my light, and to forgive, my ability to provide service just goes shoop.
Oh,
Because
okay.
if I'm not connect, and then that just makes me feel great. I feel more connected. My light shines more. I forgive more. And then it makes me go up. And it's just, they just feed each other.
Yeah.
And I think we really easily can get service and purpose and function all rolled into one. Like my purpose is to be a good mother, and whatever your career, your service, your whatever is, that's what my function is here. Well, to me, I like the word service. Like that's our service, but to provide that service well, first we need to fulfill our function. And I don't mean fulfill it perfectly, just be doing it.
Yeah.
Just be connecting, just be shining your light, and just be forgiving at the very beginning stages. And as soon as we start doing that, you just feel yourself light up. You feel yourself connect. You feel yourself forgiving others, forgiving yourself, and your ability to provide service. I know I'm repeating myself. I tend to do this when I get excited about things. Your ability to provide service just increases. The depth of your service increases. Your creativity around your service increases. Your clarity I think that's a huge one around what your service is, becomes much more apparent.
Yeah.
Right. So I love today's lesson. I just love it. And I love anything that reminds me to shine my light, because the more we shine our lights, it encourages others to shine theirs. And I've said this before about how in my preparatory ceremony before I go and teach in the quilt rooms is about me shining my light. And it's thanks to, and I give all sorts of gratitude to my ancestors, my divine support team, right? And my teachers and my mentors. And thank you so much for supporting me and loving me and nurturing me and providing me these experiences and opportunities and DNA to shine my light so that I can encourage others to shine theirs. And then, like I said, at the end, just imagine if everybody on the planet was shining their light.
Oh, totally.
Right? Because I know I didn't used to. I dimmed mine all the time. Right? And so shine your light. That is part of what the divine, what God, what the creator is looking for us to do. That's part of what our job, our purpose is here during this experience as human beings on this planet. So I love the reminders then to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To go back to your question, because I feel like this relates to that.
Yeah.
Because you were asking me how I bless myself.
Yeah,
How do
that's
you
right.
bless?
Yes. And we didn't get to finish. Sorry, I moved
Yeah,
on.
because I made it about something else apparently. um okay, so I'll quickly say it, but
Yeah.
so for me, I feel like I have trouble doing that in a physical sense. So some people talk about like self-care and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To me, I don't necessarily have that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's more like what feels like the blessing to me is when I sit and meditate and I picture universal energy or the divine shining a pillar of light into me and it growing within me. That very much feels like I'm being blessed. So
Yeah.
to me, that is how I bless myself. And the visualization of that recently changed a lot, where there
Ooh.
is a pillar of light, but the light now has become like a very like taut string, and like a really, really strong, like almost like laser string that then expands and radiates out. Because I used to like visualize like a filling of like, through your head going down and,
Mhm.
and now it's this like string that's all the way from like shoots down my whole spine past my root, down into the earth, and then it kind of expands, like the energy from it then expands out. So like it expands like that way rather than like slowly coming down like that.
The word more concentrated comes in, that
Oh,
it's just
totally.
more concentrated. Hey,
Hmm.
then beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? How do you bless yourself?
That's what I started with first, was very much so when I connect
Hmm.
in all the different ways that we can, right? Then I'm blessing myself. And then I just sat there in that and I'm like, and then when I do that, I just feel better. And when I feel better, I forgive. And when I forgive, I forgive myself also. And I do this. And I did go through and I bless myself when I have a nap when I'm tired
Yeah.
instead of just continuing on. I bless myself by eating nourishing food. I bless myself when I move my body. So I did some of the physical things. And I'm not saying I always eat nourishing food. I'm not saying that I always move my body. But when I do those things, I am blessing myself,
Yeah.
right? I'm blessing myself when I'm being creative. I'm blessing myself when I'm willing to change my perspective. And I just, like I said, 15 minutes of just allowing these ideas to come and just then understanding that blessings just show up in so many ways, just like miracles. show up in so many ways in our lives as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you ever like, so through my kind of like as part of like my daily practice, like when I'm going out and about, like I'll bless the things around me.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, what I do is like, okay, for example, with my stationery company, when anyone buys a parcel, I always bless the parcel before I send it off. And
Beautiful.
whoever interacts with a parcel, whether it's the postman or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That they get blessed with it as well, and that they just like, I just want all of the good things to come to them.
Yeah.
And in that though, to like, I also, for all the good things that come to them, I also wish to receive that for myself as well. So like in
Yes.
kind of bless others first and then also bring it full circle and bless myself as well within that. And like through that exchange. So that's one way that I've noticed that I bless myself a lot. But it's very interesting. Like, thanks for sharing like this the physical ways you bless yourself because I have a hard time relating that like when I say like when you were talking, it's like, oh yeah, I guess I do bless myself in that way as well. Like,
Yeah.
but I have a
Yeah.
hard time like sitting and thinking of that as me blessing myself.
Yeah.
Um, but I have also very much struggled with work-life balance and listening to my body when it says like, okay, Chantal, like it's time to stop now.
Yeah.
um,
I hear you.
yeah.
Yes. In lesson 211, Marianne Williamson, because I've been really all these lessons where it repeats about I am not a body, right? Because I'm trying again to just be in a good relationship with my physical body.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking of it as a vessel. And this isn't a new idea. I know that. It's just me trying to really get it into me. As my body is a vessel that holds the spirit that is looking to connect and to shine my light and to forgive and then to be able to provide my service,
Mm-hmm.
which helps me connect, shine my light, right? Right? Like I had just talked about. She talked about my body is my learning device.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really beautiful in that whole realm of listening to our bodies, right? And it's something that I bring into the quilt room a lot. One, because I've got participants of various ages, various physical and health, and all of those different things. And when we sit and sew for 4 and 5 hours, it is a lot,
Yeah.
right? So if you're doing a lot, like physically, you can be like, my back is sore. Listen to your body, take a break. Does it mean you need to go and press for a little while? You just need to stand up and walk around the room or any of those things, right? To the whole, if I have some participants who physically, they have a lot of challenges. And for them to do something, even for a short period of time, they need to do that and then take a break and then do that and then take a break. And I really notice in leading the group, giving people permission from the very beginning and reminding them, listen to your body, listen to your body, that they then don't give themselves a hard time about, hey, I did this for 15 minutes, but now I really need a break. And they'll just say, I'm going to take a little break now. Good. Listen to your body. Right? It's it's just so important. And I just see when I say this to somebody, they just soften into it.
Yeah.
And they're not about to hear, but you only worked on it for 15 minutes and we only have an hour left. And if you hurry, you could do this. Like, no. Listen to your body. Yeah. And just thinking of the quilt rooms, I want to share something with you. So remember how we when we took intuitive coach training, well, that's when I learned about it. Maybe you learned about it before that. How we learned how when we do any of our own work, any of our important work, I like to call it, that we are helping to heal set the 7 generations that came before us and 7 generations that come after us.
Yeah.
Why 7? I don't know. I haven't questioned that. I just go with it. That's okay. I'm okay with the number 7. And in one of my quilt rooms that just finished, I actually had 3 generations in there at all times. And I just thought, how powerful is this when 3 generations are in the room together doing this? And the very youngest generation isn't actually doing the work because they're children, but they're hearing words and they're feeling energy around forgiveness, around listening to our bodies, around contrast and clarity, around forgiving ourselves, around all the different things that I bring in. And they're just seeped in this energy that the whole room is working on together. And within that room, there's 3 generations. And I just think that's just so beautiful.
That is.
Yeah.
I have always wanted to do uh on Netflix when Goop came out with their first series or whatever. There's one where I think they go somewhere in like Vancouver or an island somewhere. I'm not entirely sure, but it had a bit to do with Vancouver, where they work with therapists and do like mushroom healing essentially. And
Okay.
so they like dose you, you do tea, but you're working with a therapist as you're doing it. And I remember like watching this group of like 8 people go and do it, and they all didn't necessarily know each other, but they were all being supported. And I just seeing the profound changes that happen, and to do that with a practitioner and to be very guided and held in that space. And I remember just thinking like my mom, my sister, and my grandma and I all need to go and do this together.
Oh, yeah.
Could like I talked to my sister about it and she was like, yeah, I'd be up for it. And then it never really got much further than that. I think I kind of chickened out to like ask my mom about it. Um, um, yeah, there is something about doing that group healing with your lineage and with the people who are younger and older than you, or vice versa, or whatever, that like the multi generations is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Um, because what's when you're in a family, you can really see that the 3 generations or the 4 generations, however many there are all struggling with the same wound.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
to work on that wound together, oh my gosh, would that be beautiful?
Yeah. Yeah. Just think of the power behind that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when there's such intention behind it, when the intention is to heal it, not to blame and not to continue on in those belief systems, but to actually heal that wound.
Yeah.
Yeah. And recognizing our own part in it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for tuning in, listening to Chantal and I. Once again, 2 newbies exploring A Course in Miracles. We are not trying to get it right. We're just trying to do it. So thanks for listening in.